Tom Drayton, who's my guest on the show via phone. Here are a very fashioned way of doing this, but this is not too bad at all. Tom Drayton, Pregnant Fish Theatre Company, actor, director, producer. The list goes on. Writer. The list continues to go on. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Are you keeping well?
I'm keeping very well, thank you.
And you've just told me the sun's shining in London. So
It is. It's a beautiful day.
that's two things we've got in common at the moment then. Very nice. Tell me about this new show. This has come out of some devising you've done across the country at universities, isn't it?
Yes. So we've been working with, actually it's been a long process over about 2 years. We've been working with the millennial generation, they're called, so roughly sort of 25 to 35-year-olds all around the UK, and we've been doing workshops that give them space to voice their worries, hopes, thoughts, and future plans, basically, about the country and their own lives in general. And all of that has been fed into this new piece called Like Lions.
Very nice. So was this a funded piece of research you did?
It's through the University of East London, where I'm currently doing the final stages of my doctoral study as well.
How about that, folks?
Yeah. So it's linked into that as well. But we basically we were looking at the fact that there was a recent study that came out that from the Barclay Foundation, which said that out of 20 countries studied, the millennials in the UK had the second worst mental health out of those 20 countries, which was it's dire, really, and it's all about the fact that people are stuck in rented accommodation, they're stuck on 0-hour contracts, they came out of university as graduates, but there's no graduate jobs, and all this kind of these pressures and social media and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to look at what young people actually said about this, rather than big businesses doing research or the government publishing a paper about young people's mental health, actually what young people thought about it. And that's formed the basis for this new piece.
So does this piece of music, normally with Pregnant Fish, you've done a lot of work that's engulfed music and things like that. Have you got music running through this piece?
We do. We've got two great composers called the Dagan Smiths, and they actually live in Philadelphia in America now. So we've been doing this great kind of like trans-Atlantic Skype composing, basically, where they'll send us some music to rehearsals, and we'll work with that, and we'll send stuff back to them and go back and forth, which is a great way of, it's kind of modern devising, I suppose, over the internet.
Very nice. I'm going to stop you in your tracks there and just say, being no stranger to America, tell us about your little trip you had to America.
Yeah, so I was invited by the University of New York to go there and see what they were holding a conference all about performance as activism. So they were sort of interested in our work about looking at young people and what young companies are doing, as well as us, about work that engages politically and socially. And yeah, I was really lucky to go there over to NYU and present a paper all about this research, and basically spend some time over there for a while, which was a bit of a surprise. It was absolutely great. It was really interesting to meet people from all over the world who are engaging with performance that sort of talks politically and socially about things, and engages with communities. And it was a really kind of hopeful conference in this kind of time of political uncertainty. It was this really kind of great way of people coming together and saying, no, there's all these great companies out here doing this work that works to sort of bring hope and change to places and people.
Tom, I always love chatting to you. You've got so much passion running through you, and I just feel that energy bubbling away constantly with you. It's just great.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me a bit more about this piece then that you open in Clapham. Am I right in thinking?
Yeah, so it's part of the Clapham Fringe, which is this great festival. I think it's in its third year now, which is in the Bread and Roses Theatre, which is this great venue that hosts really, really good emerging companies and established companies as well. And the Clapham Fringe is going on. It starts later this week on the 27th. It's going on for a while. It's got some really, really good theatre from all over the UK and abroad coming to Clapham. But the piece itself, as I say, it's called Like Lions, and it takes all these ideas that people have given us through these workshops, and some of it is sort of verbatim work where we've taken the stories and the ideas and the worries and the hopes that people gave us and turned that into performance. But it turned into something a lot more than I expected originally. It's turned into the story of these two twins, Jacob and Sam, who go to university, and we follow their lives from university, or from the beginning of university, for about a decade, over the financial crash of 2008, to the Occupy movement of 2010, and all this kind of stuff that's happened up until now. These sort of big political surges, the momentum movement and all that kind of stuff, and their trajectory follows the sort of trajectory of these. It takes inspiration from and parts from these young people that we've worked with, basically, to kind of show a snapshot. It's not one person's particular life, but it's a snapshot of lots of lives told in this story of these two twins and how they kind of follow different paths along life, in a life that kind of doesn't turn out as they expected, I suppose.
Fabulous. Excellent. How long did it take you to write this piece then, from your original kind of sort of musings?
Yeah, well, we've been workshopping it. We've been doing these workshops since 2016 with different people. And then the piece has come together really quite in a rush this year, I suppose, the final piece. Things have kind of been moving around since last year, but it's been, the writing process was a sort of spring time thing, really kind of like closing off the doors to anything else. Once we were busy up until the sort of beginning of the spring with our true crime piece, and we kind of go, okay, well, now we've got to get this one sorted. So close off all the doors, get some writing down. Took it round a few kind of readings and rehearsed readings and that kind of stuff, and then rehearsals have really started since the autumn began.
Very nice. And your true crime piece, of course, worked really well. It's had lots of great reviews, and been picked up by various different true crime magazines, etc., hasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was really interesting, the response we had to that, because we were really unsure how true crime would relate to the stage. It was a real kind of experiment, but there's been such a buzz about it that we can't wait for the next stages of that development as well. But it's so nice to have different sort of things to concentrate on at different times as well. You know, that was a very, very intense, thinking about the 75-year-old murder case, and then this is now something really current and a bit more hopeful and uplifting, but also kind of, as Pregnant Fish is, we tend to deal with some of the darker issues and the pressing issues as well. Nice,
yeah, not to shy away from those matters. I think that's quite important too, isn't it? That's it. I've got guests in the studio who've been ever so quiet, Tom. You wouldn't believe it. It's been pretty raucous in here, but we're all listening to you with bated breath at the moment. But I've got a doctor of comedy.
Oh, wow.
And I've also got some musical theatre performers and a musical director. So people like you love your musicals, don't you?
I do love them, yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
But I was just talking about the comedy side. Is yours a bit of a dark comedy, this new piece?
Yeah, we do have. So, yeah, it is in a way. There's a lot of comedy to it because it comes from a lot of the sort of anecdotal stories that people told us. And there's this kind of ironic, self-depreciating humour of a lot of young people at the minute as well, which I think is it's brought up a lot in internet memes and social media communication and that kind of stuff as well. So there is the two main characters, one of them becomes very invested in politics and the momentum movement and youth organisations, and the other one kind of detaches himself from that and says, well, what's the point in anything really? How does reality even work? How do we even know what's real? And it's this kind of mix match between the two characters and how they relate to each other and the world, I suppose, that the comedy comes from.
Fabulous. And have you got some of our firm favourites in your company, or have we got all new faces?
We have got Faye Carmichael is returning back after having an acting break from us. She is one of our actors and producers, but she's come back as the character Sam, which is really, really great to be working with her, directing her again. And then we've got a new face, James Glynn. He's joined us as Jacob, and he's been great because we're always looking for people to work with who can collaborate with us. I always say I'm the director for these projects, but it's a very, very collaborative process being part of Pregnant Fish. It's a real kind of like, we'll have a script, but we'll work on it together, and we'll sort of experiment and invent things together. So it's great to find those people who are very comfortable in doing that, who won't shy away from giving me their ideas or telling me that I'm wrong as well, and giving me better ideas or giving the company the chance to kind of experiment and try new things.
Perhaps you need to collaborate with us. We're working on we're trying to come up with a new idea for a musical at the moment. Just here in the studio. So we've got a few ideas we've been knocking around. We're talking about potentially sort of Clowns the Musical, or a love story between somebody who can't stand the summer and somebody who loves the winter. There's a few ideas we're juggling around there, but we feel like perhaps you, with your bit of groundbreaking kind of like looking at sort of current affairs today and sort of how they affect our lives, might be what we're missing from this round table at the moment.
I haven't got any ideas off the top of my head. I like the idea of the summer-winter relationship, like boiling sort of relationship problems down to something as simple as that would be quite nice. Nice,
and they meet in the middle in autumn. That's where things kind of work out a little bit better for them.
I like that.
Yeah, there we are. See, that's it. I told you, this is the sort of guy to pitch it to. Pregnant Fish Theatre Company, folks. Tom Drayton, tell us, when can we see your show as part of the Clapham Fringe?
So it's on from the 12th to the 14th of October, which is a Friday to Sunday at 7 p.m. And you can book tickets via claphamfringe.com, or you can go on our website, pregnantfish.co.uk, or find us on all of the social media just by searching.
No way. So you're telling us we can now book on your website, is that right?
You can follow the links through our website.
Oh, yeah.
We're not that technically savvy. We've got a website.
Probably best. Keep grounded, mate. Yeah. That's what I say. Keep grounded. What's next for Pregnant Fish beyond these performances, which you hope to take on tour, don't you?
Yeah, so we're looking at we're trying out this show. Basically, we're really excited to present this at the Clapham Fringe. It's the perfect place for this kind of show, in terms of its sort of political outlook and how it can engage with young people and the excitement and energy of the Fringe itself. And then we're looking at we've got these two projects this year that we've tested out and tried out, and we want to take them further and further afield from 2019. Yeah.
Please come down to the Southwest very soon.
We would love to. It is one of our many. I feel like we've got many homes, and the Southwest is definitely one of them.
You've always got a home down here, mate.
Yeah.
It's very touching. And have you got a question? Anybody got a question for Tom Drayton? Director, actor, writer, producer for Pregnant Fish Theatre Company? No, just keep stuffing your face with Chris. That's fine.
Yeah,
go on. Ask your question.
Because I'm interested in humour and you talked about self-deprecation humours. So is it that did they come up with the self-deprecation, or were they guided into this? And are they kind of empowered by this self-deprecation?
I think that's a really interesting question, the empowerment of self-deprecation. One of the things I was inspired by, there's an artist called Luke Turner who does some work with Shia LaBeouf, and he says that as a generation, we were raised in the 90s, which was the humour of The Simpsons and South Park, which is ironic, and it's great, but it's all irony and sort of the grunge of Nirvana. Nothing meant anything. And through how we've kind of evolved from that, like we are deeply ironic in our humour because that's how we are. But there's this, despite or even because of that, there's this desire to be truthful and sincere, and to move towards some sort of hope that's kind of evolving within the generation, which you kind of see in a lot of art and culture, and especially theatre, which is part of what I'm researching for my own thesis is millennial theatre companies that are creating work that speaks to this kind of it's kind of, I've called it hope /lessness, which doesn't really work on radio, but when you see it written down, it makes sense, because it's hopeful, but it's also hopeless. This kind of idea for, we want change and we desire change and hope, but also we kind of don't see the point. So it's this, which feeds into the humour of this sort of self-ironic depreciation of ourselves and our situation as well, I suppose.
I like about that, Maggie, eh?
Yeah.
She's coming back to you, Tom. She's coming back.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a clown teacher, I'm always interested in people, our flaws, FLAWS, and how we own the flaws, and that they're not flaws that we should feel negative about. It's flaws that we should celebrate and feel. I mean, it's Victoria Wood. When she started off in comedy, she always referenced her size, self-deprecation, and I thought it was a way of winning people over. And I got to the point where I thought, I wish you wouldn't do that anymore. And then Joe Brand did it with a massive tongue-in-cheek. Am I bothered? And so that's why I'm sort of asking about owning things that we don't believe are perfect about us, because we are all flawed and human beings, aren't we? All trying to struggle along and rub along and yeah.
And completely. And there's a sense of actually in sort of millennial generation and these young people of hiding that as well, because we're so used to creating and crafting our own social media profiles, which kind of in a way crop out the sadness. So you only post things on Instagram which are, is a beautiful day or a beautiful
aren't I happy? Look at me being happy. Wow, exactly, I'm happy. And so it gets to the point where they're going, it was just not having to sort of live up to that. Thank you.
And you're living up. You're attempting to live up to your friends almost. It's a fake persona. It's a fake life, and everyone's attempting to live up to that, which doesn't exist. Which came up a lot in these workshops of people. Some people weren't affected by it at all, but other people were kind of deeply affected by their peers and their friends' social media accounts, that they knew they were creating these kind of like fake brilliant lives, but they also felt inadequate to that in some way, and that they had to do it as well, which is really interesting. I know that's a bit off topic, but leading on to
but we're going back to the humour. Humour is really empowering, and if the funny person is a very popular person, so and also that also brings a pressure to someone. Make me laugh, sort of like, no, I don't want to today, but thanks very much anyway, But yeah,
it is tiresome. It is tiresome, mate. I tell you, it's been the life and soul of the party. I'll be quite honest.
I know, Rob.
And talking about flaws, I've always used my web toe as a starting point. In fact, I was just thinking about I might just whip it out in a minute.
You swim off into the ocean there, Rob.
Very nice. Very good. Just bring it back, Tom. Just bring it back.
Thank you, Tom.
Nice. That's it. Maggie's been very happy and satisfied with that now, mate. Tez, that first piece of music we played, I've never come across it before, neither of the other guests in the studio. Tell me, A Death in the Woods, The Magnetic North from Prospect of Skelmersdale. Tell me.
So the Magnetic North are a great band, and their album, The Prospect of Skelmersdale, is all about one of their hometowns, which is the town of Skelmersdale. And Skelmersdale was built in the 60s as a new town to kind of take in the overspill from from Merseyside nearby. And it was created like this modern utopia, just 2 miles off the motorway. So all of the houses had a dining room and had a garden, and you could walk through the town. You'd never have to cross a road. And the factories were within, a really good distance to work, but no houses were next to the factories. It was they started this idea and utopian ideal of a town in a way, to start towns from scratch. And I got really, really interested in this idea of Skelmersdale and how this idea of starting things from scratch and a new chance and a new hope related to this sort of desire that we found within young people for something more and something new, but also how it linked into the housing crisis for Britain in general, but for young people as well. 1 in 3 people, according to a report, 1 in 3 millennials, will never own their own home, they're predicting for the future at the minute. So this idea of this purposefully built utopian town was really, really interesting. And the Magnetic North, as a band, were the people that introduced me to that idea and that introduced the company to the town as well. And it's fed into the writing of Like Lions, because it's partly set in Skelmersdale.
Ah, very nice too. I'm going to play out our interview today with another piece of music you've chosen. This is from the City of Bootmakers. Tell me about this choice.
So this is a song called Generation L brackets OST, so Generation Lost, and I think it's by LA Salami, and I think it's a great kind of anthem for the millennial generation. You've got lyrics in there where it's like, I'm ageless, but I'm out of time. I'm restless, but I've got nowhere to go. It's this sort of hypocritical back and forth nature of the generation where we say that social media is destroying our lives, yet we go on social media all the time. We hate the fact that we're stuck in 0-hour contracts and the gig economy, but with the biggest users generationally of apps like Uber and Deliveroo, so we propagate that economy as well. Like it's this this kind of like hypocritical back and forth life is rubbish, but what can we do about it kind of feeling. And it's a really good tune as well.
Tom Drayton, I could talk to you all day. I find you completely fascinating. I really do. I just find you really interesting, so informed about the subject you're working on at the time, whether that being Spring Awakening, whether that was Sweeney Todd, whether it's been your devised pieces of theatre you've worked on of more latter years. You're always so informed and current at the time, and I think that's probably what is going to make you sort of continue to excel in your world of directing and writing. So
thanks
great
very
stuff.
much.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for your time today. Perhaps we could chat again in a fortnight, literally just days before you open.
That sounds great.
Just to find out where we're up to. But for the moment, I want to wish you and Pregnant Fish all the very best with your forthcoming rehearsals and getting ready in preparation for Light Lions, which is going to be part of the Clapham Fringe Theatre Festival. Fabulous. Right, I'm going to play this for you now. This is Generation Lost. Thanks, Tom. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, thank you.